I'll call the meeting to order. If we all would stand, face the flag, put our hand over our heart, we'll do the pledge of allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sonia, will you take roll call, please?
Yep, Commissioner Shaw.
Here.
Commissioner Dippel.
Here.
Commissioner Wire.
Here.
Commissioner Foreman. Not here. Mayor Denner.
Here. We have the agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? So moved. Second. Is there any comments or discussion on the agenda? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Not seeing anything under appearances and acknowledgement. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Not seeing anything under unfinished business, we'll move down into new business. We're gonna open up the item number one, we're gonna open up the hearing on the wastewater improvement project up to $6 million for the water and natural resources. Pat, did you want to talk about that?
Sure. Do we know if Greg is online or if he was going to be attending?
Don't see one yet.
Okay. So the reason for the public hearing is to just kind of give an overview of the projects that we'll be potentially applying funding for and allow for some public input if there's any questions or discussion. Do we need, how separated do you want to keep these discussions? I mean, was the intent to have the wastewater public hearing, close that and then start the water
Yes.
hearing or, okay. And so I'll try to kind of summarize or keep them individual as we go, but there's going to be a little bit of overlap along the way. Sonia has some figures up on the screen there. And so the very first one right here,
RD.
yep. This one is just kind of a little bit of a look backwards. This indicates, or this shows all of the project areas that are currently part of the phase 1 and phase 2 rural development projects. And kind of the idea here is to show you overall how everything fits together with what we're contemplating for projects to include with the SRF program. So the second slide here shows 6 segments that were included in the city's state water plan application that was submitted back in October. And then we are also currently working on a facility plan amendment that goes along with these 6 segments and ultimately would be reflect what would be in the city's funding application that is due the end of December, actually January 1st. So these segments, and it might be kind of hard to tell some of the colors apart, but the segment 1 in the light blue, that includes both drinking water and sewer. Segment 2 is also drinking water and sewer. Segment 3 is drinking water only. Segment 4 is drinking water only. Segment 5 is drinking water and sewer, and segment 6 is sewer only. So as we kind of talk through this process, those are the projects that we're considering for applying for SRF funding. That would be new projects moving forward. And so then this final slide shows an overlay of the current rural development projects in the light blue and how they connect with these proposed phases of the SRF financing. And you'll notice kind of in the top left corner, there's some overlap between the green That's part of segment 6, and also what's currently being done for rural development. And what that is sewer relining. So it's not to make you think that we're going to go back in and disturb the areas that were just done. That's some lining work that won't disturb the surface. So kind of the touch base on the need for the project is as part of the city's kind of overarching capital improvement plan. These are areas that were identified that have aging infrastructure that are in need of repair. The alternatives that we identified to evaluate these were to either replace the line, or as far as the sewer is concerned, would be to replace the lines, line them in place, or do nothing. And so what we identified were roughly $5.7 million worth of sewer improvements that follow along with water improvements. And so it made sense to bring them together, reconstruct, and then end up with new roadways at the end. The proposed financing for this project, as it turns out, subsequent to some of the initial discussion that we've had, DANR came out with some additional guidance of how to kind of project what they anticipate doing for grant and loan funding specific to the ARPA funds, knowing that they had quite a few more requests than they actually have dollars. Currently, they're looking at about $600 million of ARPA funds being in the governor's budget. And so how that affects, or how that is relevant to Madison, is for communities that have a population of over 2,500 people. Their criteria was to allow up to a 30% grant with up to a $3,000 per person maximum project for the ARPA grant. So if you do some quick math, the population of Madison that the DANR is using is 6,191 times $3,000 per person. That's a little over $18.5 million. You take 30% of that, and that's the potential grant that could be applied for. As it turns out, and again, this is where I'm going to kind of overlap the two projects, but as it turns out, all the combined water and sewer projects that we've identified for this funding are just slightly over $18 million. So we're right at the threshold where you should be able to maximize the grant through ARPA that DANR would likely provide. So if we just go back and look at on the sewer side, the clean water project is a little under $5.7 million. That would be financed through potentially up to a 30% grant. The remainder of it would be loan funds. That loan would be repaid presumably using user rates. The commission, you can decide some other scenarios as well, but that's kind of the straightforward way. That loan would be 30 years at 2 1/8%. And so based off of just that assumption of a $5.7 million project, 30% potential grant, that would require roughly a $6 a month increase in the sewer rate. And the other thing that really kind of coincidentally hits is one of the other targets for the DANR on their guidance is they want to see communities. They're targeting what they call an affordable rate, and that affordable rate is $55 per 5,000 gallons for water and $55 per 5,000 gallons for sewer. Currently, if I have the number right, your sewer rate is $49.30 based on the information in the state water plan application for the $5,000. If we're looking at this approximate $6 increase, that would put you right at that $55 a month. for sewer. One of the other things I should mention, what we found out through talking to the DANR and also this guidance that they put out is they indicate in here that if a community were to earmark their local ARPA funds that you've already received, which in the case of Madison, I believe is 1.3 million over 2 years, they will match those dollars dollar for dollar. So you could turn your 1.3 million into 2.6 million. And as we understand it, they would basically take that right off the top of, in this case, we'd have a combined $18 million project. They would potentially take that off the top and then figure your grant percentage after that. So there could be an advantage to you as well to earmark those funds, double them up, and then see how the remaining ARPA funds shake out. But
Question before you get.
Sure.
deeper then. So are all those grant details, are they been finalized or they all need to go to the legislature yet?
I think these details are relevant to how DANR is going to administer them. So I think they're making this determination. I think the question on the legislature is how much is actually going to get allocated? And that number seems to bounce between 600 million and 700 million from what we've heard.
Okay, so the legislature needs to figure out how much they're gonna allocate. but
Yep.
How that money, whatever it is given out is set through these
Right.
guidelines by the ANR.
Right.
we used our ARPA funds, would it decrease the $6 add on to our sewer surcharge?
Right. But yes, I think it would be I mean, you could certainly look at it that way. And you know, the surcharge is a good segue too. I mean, instead of a rate increase, you could look at a surcharge too, if it was something that you wanted to allocate just to pay for this project. And then when the project's done, you know, but with a 30-year loan, a rate increase is probably the route that you would go. But right, that using that additional $2 million, $2.5 million grant would impact that rate increase on both the water and the sewer. And again, Madison's kind of in that with your population being over 2,500, you hit that threshold of, you know, they're saying applicants will receive a minimum of a 30% ARPA grant. So that's where you're at. I think in some other cases for communities, there's going to be more questions. But I think for you, it's going to be pretty straightforward. The 30% is where they're going to look at you to be. The numbers seem to all work out. If that's you know, how you ultimately want to put the final funding application together. Any other questions on the sewer or wastewater portion?
We have Christine, right?
Hi.
From First District. If you want to come on up, add anything to it.
That was just for the sewer.
Yep.
Nothing.
Greg must have sent you.
Yeah,
Well,
he's not feeling well today, so here I am.
okay.
I do know you're right on the 30%, but it's to a maximum of $3,000 per person per capita.
Yep.
So if you reach that 3,000 per your population, then it could be less than 30% based on that. But I think, as you said, with their population, you'll probably get up to that 30% pretty nicely. And yeah, my calculations on your rate increase on the wastewater is about what he said. Yeah, 49.30. You had $6 increase, because I was going off of your connections of 2,600.
Yep.
So yeah, it would be about accurate. And then doing both of the projects together, I mean, they want to get that affordable rate to about $55. So you're going to be looking at that as being that affordable rate, and then they'll look at grants to not go over that amount, if that makes sense. So yeah, not much to add. It's pretty accurate there.
So I think, I mean, that is a potential that there could be more than a 30% grant, but I think it's, that's not what, you can't count on that, I guess, is a good
Right.
way to look at it.
Yeah, with the amount of projects going in, there is a lot of money being out there to allocate, but there's a lot of projects going and we're doing about 3 times as many on an average year, just because people did know that the money was coming down. So I think right now on the state water plan, there's about $3 billion worth of projects out there. So
Pat, you mentioned the wastewater side added up to 5.7 million, so it was.
Yep,
Requesting 6 million gives a little bit of cushion there. As we all know, expenses on projects can change very quickly. Is that extra 5% enough? Of course, nobody knows.
right. I don't know, I don't know how we can answer that question right now. I think one other factor that I think the DENR is going to throw in here, and I don't know how we predict this either, is, are they going to kind of internally, somewhat arbitrarily pick a maximum project amount that they think, okay, if your project is over X million dollars, it's going to be difficult to get done in the time frame we have with the workload, with the supply chain, with the contractors. That could be another limitation just overall, but I don't think we can predict that. The feedback that we've gotten from DENR was, and again, in your case, I think the numbers work out for your project, that there's not any initial red flags. I think what an approach would be is to apply for funding for this project, get it in front of them, let them sort through all the paper, all the requests. And it sounds like if they do have some suggestion that maybe a community should scale back a project, they're going to give you that opportunity to do that and act on that prior to them making a decision in March. So I don't think this is a, one shot, and if we guess wrong, we're going to be out in the cold. I think, if for some reason they think $18 million is more than Madison can handle, they're going to come back and give that opinion and that opportunity. We did let them know, though, that, currently you're taking on $23 million worth of projects and things are moving along. So, I think they look at that favorably as well.
The 6 segments you referenced, those are all part of the 6 million.
Correct. Well, on the,
Not all of them are on sewer.
right, yeah, there's,
Of course, yeah. But I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it represents financing for all 6 segments.
oh, yes, yep.
So just to clarify, this would be 30% grant of the 18.5 million or 19 million that were with the 2 projects together, right?
Right.
Okay,
Plus
Yep.
we could double our ARPA funds, whatever.
sure.
So that's pretty much.
But I think, realistically though, when they do the financing, they're gonna split them up because you're gonna have a drinking water funding package and a clean water funding package, but, for sake of discussion, you can combine them and, they're just gonna have their, a portion share for each.
we also want to stress, we don't want to think that you're guaranteed grants, even though that's what the governor has put in, recommended into her budget. You're still only applying for loans, and then they will give you a financial package that probably has grants in it. So go into this with the worst case scenario in your mind.
To reiterate, there's no obligation on the city's part at any point in time until we sign a loan agreement with the city.
Right. So in that meeting in March, or maybe postponed because of the legislature on this money, it could be postponed till April. When that meeting happens and they give you your financial package, you will have time to come back to your board and think about it before you actually are obligated to say yes or no.
So all
Not,
we're really doing is just saying we're gonna do this. If we can fund it, great. If not, we're out.
Great. If you do decline their financial package, just know that that's the best financial package you will probably get. And if you apply next year, it'll probably be less of a grants on that financial package. So keep that in mind. You do have an option, and we actually really recommend that there is some sort of presence at the meeting. We're hoping it's Zoom, and so you can just come in and as a Zoom meeting, but definitely have somebody there to rebut if you want to. If you don't think that the financial package is good enough, you can have about 3 to 5 minutes to talk them maybe into changing their minds. Or else if you like the financial package, then it's really a good idea to say, thank you for considering our city. We really need this, so thank you so much. But yeah, just having a presence there really shows that you care a lot about your city. And there was an instance that Greg says happened a few years ago where nobody showed up from one community, and they said, I guess they don't care about it enough, and they didn't give them anything. That's where the recommendation comes from, to please go to the meeting in some form.
And I'm gonna come back to, I feel like we've been very proactive in our water projects. that,
Yeah.
We're trying to get things done, infrastructure.
Right, this is applying for phase 2, so it does show that you are trying to keep it up in your community, which is another thing that they want.
Do you have any more before I close the hearing on the wastewater improvement project?
Jameson, I think part of the answer to your question about the 6 million, right, was what it said. I think that was, and Christina can correct me, but I think that's just how Greg suggested writing the resolution. So there's a little bit of fluff in there. I think what would likely happen is the funding application would reflect what our final cost estimates are, unless we want to add another contingency or something in them. So just something to keep in mind.
And your final cost estimate would be at what point in time?
So that needs to be done by the end of this month. So, or I mean, sooner, actually, probably middle of this month. So that is part of the funding application.
So even
that gets
even
put
if
together.
construction costs continue to increase, which is likely. to
Right.
be well after your final
Yep.
estimate, which is what they're going off of.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I don't know, again, looking forward with the crystal ball, does that mean there's gonna be some more funds that come available to help offset some of this inflation that might be seen? It's hard to say what the state's gonna do down the line, but I think everybody's aware that it's a definite possibility that there's gonna be shortfalls, 2 years from now when these projects are being built.
Any other comments before I close the hearing? Hearing any, I will close the hearing. I will jump down to item number 3. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-35 wastewater SRF authorizing resolution? So
Second.
is there other comments? Questions? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried. We'll move back up to item number 2, hearing on the drinking water improvement project up to 13 million, Board of Water and Natural Resources. Do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, so again, looking at that map, the areas that are included for the drinking water are segments 1 through 5. And again, kind of the overarching need for the project is just aging infrastructure and areas that were identified in the city's capital improvements plans as lines that should be replaced and upgraded. In this case, the only alternatives evaluated were either replacing them or doing nothing. Currently, the total project cost for the water side is $12,308,500. I don't know if you want to touch on the financing pieces of it, or do you want me to just summarize some of that quick?
You can.
Okay, so again, as far as proposed financing, and we're hoping for up to a 30% grant on the 12.3 million. The revenue source to repay that would likely be user rates. Interest rate and term of the loan would be 30 years at 2 1/8%. And potential impact to user rates, assuming that there's the 30% grant, would be around $12 a month for 5,000 gallons, or excuse me, $12 a month. And currently, your water rate is $43.70 for 5,000. So with that rate, it again puts you right at that $55 threshold that the DANR has kind of identified.
Does that threshold change very often?
No, we honestly, we expected it to change this time. We were thinking that they were gonna be looking at least $65. And the guidance that we got from them shows no change. So.
Yeah, so like you said, $6 for wastewater. If we choose to go with a rate increase, $6 and $12 would be an $18 increase. And then once this project was paid off, we could take those, could come back off
Right.
or would fall off.
Yep. And you probably know better than me on this, but you just have to show that your rates are gonna cover 110% of your loan costs, which, is only probably a small portion of your overall rates anyway, with all the other O&M expenses and such that the city has, but.
But they'll recommend, and this is an estimate because the DANR will recommend what your rate should be to be able to pay back the loan. So the impact that we're giving you is really just an estimate based on our calculations.
Or anything else or comments on this hearing on the drinking water improvement project? Not hearing any. I will close the hearing and we'll jump down to item number 4. I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-36, drinking water SRF authorizing resolution.
So moved.
Second. Any comments or discussion? Hearing any, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Pat, Christine, for coming down this evening.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was late.
You're fine.
You beat me.
Move into item number 4, authorize the mayor to sign resolution number 2021-34, Lewis and Clark Water System MGD expansion commitment agreement. We have both Ryan and Troy here. You guys want to come up and bring us up to speed on this, please? Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. So this is the Lewis and Clark expansion commitment agreement. Currently, the design of the Lewis and Clark system provides a capacity of 44.19 million gallons per day. The expansion would add 15.81 million gallons per day and round out the system reserve capacity to 60 million. Specific to Madison, this takes our capacity from 1 million gallons a day to 1.58. Lewis and Clark Board, when it approved this agreement in July, it set the January 3rd, 2022 date as the deadline for members to sign the agreement and pay the non-refundable design deposit. Looking at the agreement, just wanted to touch on a couple of things. Exhibit A shows the members' proportional value of the 15.81 million gallons per day expansion, as well as our estimated proportional share of the expansion in today's dollars. Exhibit B is for illustration purposes only. I passed out a couple newer versions of that. Exhibit B, again, it's for illustration purposes only, and this shows an estimated cash flow schedule in today's dollars for the expansion. This would be one of many, many possible scenarios. The actual schedule depends on how quickly or slowly the board decides to complete the expansion. There are a number of factors that will go into that. Exhibit C shows each member's estimated share in today's dollars of the non-refundable deposit to cover the estimated cost for the design of phase one. And then Exhibit D shows what each member's new reserve capacity would be with the addition of the 15.81 million gallons per day. So similar to when the members made a commitment to join Lewis and Clark, they did so only based on estimates, and they didn't really know the final price tag. Same thing happens here. The members again are going to have to make a commitment to participate only based on estimates and not knowing the final price tag. As far as timing, the bipartisan infrastructure bill has pushed the timeline forward for when we get started on this expansion. Phase one was always explained to me as entirely dependent upon when we get federal funding. And so back when the agreement was drafted, it was estimated the design of phase one would occur in 2027, construction in 2028. As you can see with those updated exhibits, the timeline is pushed way out. As far as the timeline for phase two, I've understood that it will no doubt be dependent in large part on how much ARPA funds are approved and can be applied toward the expansion. It's hard to project this because the schedule to complete the remaining infrastructure depends on how quickly the majority of the 20 directors want to proceed, and we really don't have any idea when that will be. But one would assume that if Lewis and Clark gets a fair amount of ARPA funding, it'll bring down the price tag for the members and increase the likelihood that the board will want to complete the expansion as soon as possible. So that's kind of where we're at.
Did you say, maybe I just missed it, but are other members expected to do the expansion, or is anybody gonna be declining? You know?
I'm unaware of anyone that's declining. I guess probably didn't have their.
First of all, great job, Brian. Thank you for serving on the board. Currently, 17 members, 16 have approved it. You would be the 17th. Sioux Falls is scheduled to approve it next week, and the other 2 are also expected to approve it. So no one has said that they are not going to participate. You want me to add some? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Ryan again did a great job of summarizing it. What I would just share a couple different things. Number one, I grew up on a farm. I don't know if any of you grew up on a farm, but what I found in hearing my dad and relatives talk is you don't buy land when you need the land. You buy the land when it becomes available, especially if it's right next to you. I think you could make an argument. You don't need the expansion capacity now, but this is when it's being made available to you. To put the cost in perspective, the overall cost of the expansion is in today's dollars, roughly $100 million for 15 MGD, 15.81. So almost 16 MGD, 100 million. To put that in perspective, Minnehaha Community Water Corp and Big Sioux Community Water, who both work with you on this wheeling plan that we have. I don't know if you've heard, but they are working on a joint effort to build a new treatment facility, wells, piping. According to Scott Buss, who's the manager of MCWC, the estimated cost in today's dollars for that whole project is $170 million for 8 MGD. 170 million for 8 MGD versus 100 million for 15 MGD. The point being is this is the cheapest water you're ever going to get, even though it's not as cheap as the original capacity because there was all the cost share. And it's obviously cheaper to expand what we currently have than start fresh, which is what MCWC and Big Sioux are doing. The other thing I'd mention is the handouts that you received there. Everything to the left of the yellow line is what we call phase one. There's an opportunity to save a considerable amount of money by doing some of the infrastructure, the expansion infrastructure with the base system. For example, we need a 5th solids contact basin with the base system. When I say base system, that's 45 MGD. We need a 6th solids contact basin to go to 60 MGD. The engineers have told us that we could save a significant amount of money if we built the 6th basin the same time we built the 5th basin, as well as a 2nd gravity thickener. We also need more lime drying beds to even get to 45 MGD. And so there is certain work that we have to do, and that we consider phase one. A question on the table that the board will need to decide on December 21st is whether 3 projects are part of phase one or 4 projects. That's why you have 2 different scenarios. The 4th project is improvements that we need to make to the high service pump station and clear wells. That is the last work we need to do at the treatment plant. So all the trades would already be there if we do that work the same time we do the basins and the 2nd gravity thickener. So we can save, the engineers estimate about 1.5 million if we do that 4th project at the same time. But it all depends on the finances of the members. Members may say, you know what, yes, that would save some money, but this is all hitting us kind of quick. The infrastructure bill sped up things. And so let's put that 4th project on the back end. If you do that, it increases the cost overall, but it helps your finances today. So the question is, do you want to pay now or pay more later? And I believe there will be differences of opinions by the members, and ultimately it'll be 11 out of the 20 deciding how to proceed. But I just want to explain the difference between the 2 scenarios is that 1 project. And then the other handout you received is, Ryan mentioned Exhibit C shows what design costs you need to pay by January 3rd. That is when the payment is due for what was originally considered phase one. We've since added the lime drying beds and stockpile area that has to be a part of it as well. And so what you're seeing is another page showing what additional design costs would need to be paid sometime in 2022 or potentially 23. So I just want to make it clear, whether we go with 3 or 4, it doesn't change that amount due on Exhibit C. That's due January 3rd. But because we're adding more work, more projects to phase one, that will increase the design cost. And that's why there'll be a 2nd payment, again, either in 2022 or 23, depending on what's decided. That's all I got. Questions?
So I see on here, Troy, that, well, like Exhibit B that came in with the lead, with the agreement, starting 2027.
Mhm.
And the ones that Ryan had handed out to us, the proposal, are 2022. What is the likelihood of you guys pushing it up that far, that close?
It's already happened because of the bipartisan infrastructure bill is what moved it. So it is being moved up. What we don't know, and it sounds like same as the presentation before us, is we don't know. So that's a bipartisan infrastructure bill. Separate from that, we're applying for ARPA funds to help offset some of the costs of the expansion. We've made applications. We've submitted 8 different applications across 3 states. My hope is we get roughly 25 million out of the 100, but as the presenter said before us, you have to make the decision on the worst case scenario, assuming you don't get any, has to stand on its own merits, but we do hope we get some ARPA funding to help offset the cost. But yeah, back to your question, Mayor, the 2027 is not even an option anymore.
With the expanded capacity that Madison would have available if we proceed with this, what's the likelihood we could generate revenue by selling it to other members or other entities?
Very good. Prior to his departure, I know Chad Comas was visiting with MCWC. That would be your natural first place to go. And I've already shared numbers that this is the cheapest water they could ever get. So other members are wheeling and dealing, for lack of a better term. For example, if you felt that you only wanted half the capacity, what other members are doing is, and I'm just using an example because it's kind of been a cookie cutter approach that other members have been using, is asking another member to cover 75% of the cost. In return, they get half the capacity, or cover 50% of the cost and get 25% of the capacity. So those agreements are already underway. Sibley made a deal with Harrisburg. Let's see, Centerville made a deal with South Lincoln Rural Water. Anyway, so yeah, there's a good opportunity for you to offset some of that cost if you so chose.
I have a question for you. How much are we using the million right now?
It kind of depends on the weather and the month and all that type of stuff. On a typical, like this last month, I think we did somewhere around, I'll go back, I think here it was. So I think this last month was 7,200,000 for the last month. So you divide that out, it's, lower in the winter time.
Do you recall what our peak day we bought?
I think in our peak day, we were, right around 700, 600 and some thousand. And that was a day, I think there was a day where we had to cut our plant back and we had to buy more.
So it's nice to have that flexibility though.
Yeah,
I know there's
so-
been a few times since we got the whaling option where we sole sourced water.
We did just about 2 weeks ago, we ran all weekend on full 100% import water. We shut the plant down. We had a problem with one of the clarifiers that they had to try to get back under control. So they shut the plant down for the entire weekend and ran on the rural water, import water. So it does give us flexibility at the plant for maintenance and different things. When we did the coating project, we were on rural water for a period of time, a couple years ago. So it is something that gives us the redundancy, resiliency, and operational flexibility to do maintenance on the plant when we need it.
What do we use out of the plant per day?
On an annual basis, the total amount of water is just shy of 20 million, like 21 million, it's about 21 million gallons this last year. So you do annual basis, 21 million gallons, you're gonna be, in that, go through the math real quick here, probably about, you got your calculator going there.
I was hoping Adam was doing it.
About 57,000 a day.
How much?
About 57,000 a day. 21 million divided by 365 days.
Let me think here.
We probably use less because of the pool this year, I would say.
But I mean, we use more than that, I guess, that was 21 million a year, so.
Just like
Also very dry.
Right. I guess where I'm going with it is what we use out of the Lewis and Clark or the Wheeling and what we manufacture here for a day, how much we use.
Usually it's about 2/3 that we make on our own and about 1/3 of the Lewis and Clark.
Something, sorry, go ahead.
I said that wrong because it's about 20 million gallons a month, I think. So let me go through that. That'd be about 600,000 a day, 660 a day. So that's right. That's what it comes out.
So that's 840. We use 240 from Lewis and Clark and 600.
No, I mean, the total for for like 21 million gallons a month is total water. I was thinking a year, that's per month. And so it comes out about 670,000 a day. in
That
water
comes from
total.
the plant, or
Total,
total.
total. And
Okay,
then of that, roughly, probably about a third-ish
Okay.
is Lewis and Clark.
so we had to, where I was going with it, if we had to shut down the plant, let's say something happened, we shut it down, we could get all our water from Lewis and Clark. Cause
Yes.
we get 1 million a day.
Yes, as I said,
Okay,
we've done it just this last couple weekends ago.
okay,
So it's not a problem.
If I could, something to keep in mind is best case scenario, this expansion is completed in 10 years. That's best case scenario. It might be 12, 15. So when you think of this expansion water, don't think about what you need today. Think about what you might need in 10, 15, 20 years.
I guess the concern I have is, you know, moving it up into 2022, our debt limit. I don't see us putting this on our debt limit, so it would have to come out of usage for our rates. And I'm just trying to add up all the, we just added $18 for SRF, if that goes through. Right. So this would be another shot to the rates. Because I don't see us with, at 2022, I don't see us being able to put this on the debt limit like we did the first Lewis and Clark.
I believe this could be structured through surcharges.
I understand that, but I'm just saying that would be more added to,
It would
Our
increase
residents.
rates in some
That's-
way, shape, or form.
right.
But that limit would be the issue.
right, the debt limit. But if we had more time, if the 2027 would have went through or kept going with that, we would have had some of our debt limit taken down that we could have used that. Where it's going on.
If I look at this correctly, from 2022 to 2026, I'm looking at the project, phase one, with the 4 projects, it's about 1.1 million that the city of Madison would be responsible for paying over the next 5 years.
Correct.
So that's not a significant, I mean, we're looking at 25,000 this year, 175,000. Those aren't with that far outside of something we could just pay cash for. Those parts are small amounts. It's when you get into 2027 going forward, that those amounts go up a lot farther. And we do have some financing for water and sewer projects that will come off in 2028 and 2029. So there's probably some gray area there too, as far as when the major part of this debt will hit versus this initial phase one.
And I'm glad you shared that. If I could add to that, the only thing you can really take away from those exhibits, and thank you, Ryan, for saying that they're for illustration purposes. Again, everything to the left is phase one. That's really the only thing that you can count on. Everything else, there's no timeline when we're going to complete the rest. So that yellow line represents a 1-year break. That is only for illustration purposes. Originally, if you look, we have a 10-year gap. The board said, well, okay, show me the 1-year gap. I mean, the board will decide what that gap is. But so in terms of your immediate financing, she's correct that you would look at what's left of the yellow line, and that's the here and now. Everything else, we have no idea on the timing. It really depends on the water.
Pay the full amount, lock in those rates?
No, we've talked about that, and prepayment just causes too many problems because ultimately every member has to pay their fair share. And so if you somehow get out from inflation indexing, you're pushing that cost to another member. And so they don't want to pay that any more than their fair share. We have talked about that. Which, back to the 2027, a silver lining. Well, there's a lot of silver linings about the bipartisan infrastructure bill, but the overall cost is a lot less because we're complete, we show being completed in a smaller window. So inflation indexing doesn't take quite the toll.
And I want to be put myself on the record. I'm not against this expansion. I'm just concerned of putting more costs on our residents at this time, if we can't go through the debt limit. Is my concern that we're gonna bite off too much.
We could talk about what we did last time with Lewis and Clark, where we put it on the
Sales tax.
ordinance for a surcharge, and then we actually paid it through the second sound. So then rates didn't go up.
I understand that, but that constitutes that.
No, if
vote
you put a surcharge in your ordinance saying that if we don't bring in this amount of money, this amount of the rates will go toward that service.
They opted to roll second set money into to cover it. It wasn't obligated to second set funds. The ARPA funding that you're applying for, is that limited like ours? It has to be spent by 2026.
That's our understanding, correct?
So it would likely apply primarily to phase one. is what you're
Correct.
thinking?
Right. I mean, there's a scenario, if we get enough funding, is members don't have to pay anything toward phase one. That would be great, but you can't make your decision today based on that. But yeah, and because of the 5-year limit, we requested funds based on that limitation. So the reason we didn't ask for the whole thing was we can't spend all the money in 5 years. So we were very selective about what we requested funding for so that we could justify the request.
Troy, you're asking us, we need to sign this lease and pay how much by the third or fourth?
Exhibit C would be how much you have to pay by January.
2023, 366.
Yeah.
And if we decide that we are going to bite off too much, we lose that 23.
Correct.
If we decide to back out later on.
Correct. And then those two other sheets show how much would be due later based on whether it's 3 phases or 4 phases that Ryan just handed out.
Okay, yeah,
That's addition to exhibit C. So exhibit C is
So-
all on its own.
it'd be an extra, if we went 3 phases, it would be an extra 4,242. And 4 projects would be an extra 29,626
And because
at a later date.
at a later date, and the smaller number, because it's smaller, wouldn't be due until later. And so
This one would be,
later, possibly
what
2023,
about the 29?
that would be due August 1st of
So
22.
we have some. So it would be basically if we signed the contract and paid the 24,000 and we decide to do nothing, we'd be out 24, correct?
Correct.
You guys still offer tours of the facility?
Absolutely. Would love to have you guys down there sometime. We'll roll out the red carpet. Take you
You
out.
can save that expense.
Yeah, take it off your expansion cost. But no, we've done that for other members, commissions, councils, boards come down, take the whole tour. We have construction underway at our well field, which is in that area as well. So yeah, we would love to show you the whole thing. I mean, you guys, you own it. You're not a customer, you are the owner. And we love showing the owners what they own. So we'd love to have you come down sometime.
Do you have an owl?
Pardon?
Do you have an owl?
An owl? Oh, that's an owl? No, we don't have an owl. We've been trying to save money.
Right, a question off track here. You know when we will be off the Wheeling and be on Lewis and Clark? 100%?
That's a good question. And the infrastructure bill has changed that schedule for the better. We would anticipate by the end of 24, potentially, Sioux Falls or Madison could be receiving Lewis and Clark water. We already have the easements between Benson Road, Crooks, and I should say Crooks, not Benson Road, between Crooks and the northern part of the Wheeling plan. There's 32 miles. We have those easements. That would be one of the first contracts we award this spring We don't know yet when we can award contracts. We're still waiting. But yeah, that's, I mean, I would say by the end of 2024. And the reason it wouldn't happen sooner is 32 miles is a lot of pipe to build, and we likely won't actually award the contract till probably summer, and then they have to get pipe, and that could take a while. So I don't know how much work would actually take place in 22. So it'd likely be all of 23 and 24 where construction would take place. And the longer you give contractors, the better the price.
Would that water tower that's on that line be part of that construction as well?
Yeah, right. In addition to the pipeline, we have a reservoir that we need to build outside of town, and we already own the land for that. Yes.
No other questions? Do I have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign resolution number 2021-37, Lewis and Clark Rural Water System MGD Expansion Commitment Agreement?
So move.
You know where we're taking it, just cash.
Second.
Is there any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Ryan. Thank
Thanks,
you, Ryan.
My thanks again to Ryan for serving on the board. Appreciate it.
The last item we have here, we'll bring Kirk and Eric up, discuss an action to authorize the mayor to sign lease renewal document with the Greater Madison Area Chamber of Commerce and the Lake Area Improvement Court.
Jameson, do you want to start? You want me to?
Sure.
Okay.
So the Chambers and Lake Area Improvement Corporation have, over the last decade or so, have had 5-year leases with the city to use the depot building along the rail there. And every 5 years, the lease expires and comes up for new ones. So we're at the 5-year point. Staff recommend extending the lease in the same terms that we've had in the past years. Both their boards have already discussed and recommend approve moving forward as well. Couple overview of the lease agreement. So the two entities are able to use the facility without paying any rent. So it's $0 on the rent. They are responsible for paying utilities as well as routine maintenance and cleaning within the facility. Each entity contributes $100 per month into a fund for improvements, repairs, and maintenance to the interior of the building. Should the lease ever expire and the entities leave the building, those funds will remain property of the city. The city, on our end, we're responsible for a lot of the outdoor responsibilities for the facility, as well as the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing components of the building. Summary, so we're at that end of the 5 years, and I'll turn it over to you guys if they have anything else.
Yeah, I don't really have much more to add from what Jameson did, except we did, LAIC and the chamber did go in and did some remodeling of the meeting room the last few months, and new desks, new chairs, make it a little bit more of a meeting room look to it. So, but we did not use, we took that out of our budgets. That did not come out of the repair and maintenance funds. So that is still available also for both entities.
I recommend anybody stop in there. It's my view, it's clearly more functional and useful for your entities as meeting rooms or for your board meetings.
It's being used often, so much more frequently. We appreciate the space and
And the price.
the price. We will continue to work hard.
Are you getting all settled in, bro?
I am, yeah,
Okay,
thank
Have you
you.
been to a meeting yet?
No, this is my
Would you like to
first.
introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah, my name is Brooke Rolla. I am the new director at the Lake Area Improvement Corporation. So started back mid-October. So like we said, getting settled in. Yeah, very exciting. Thank you.
And then you've been very busy with the Fort Madison campaign. It's been probably baptism by fire, but we.
Baptism by fire is the most
Accurate.
accurate description I could ever have put together.
Well, we'd love
Um,
to have you back, maybe in January when things settle down for a little bit, just to get to know you.
Thank you.
I think Eric pushed her underneath the bus. He said she was gonna get a new business in for Taco John's, right?
Yeah,
Fortunately, I don't think that's your responsibility. Your assistance in that matter.
we did get a lot of questions about it, thinking, well, what's going on?
I did too.
I was surprised.
Was there any motion to take the action?
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the lease renewal document with GMACC and LAIC.
I'll second.
Any further comment or discussion? Hearing any? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brooke.
Thank you.
This is the
very
final.
much.
That's a beautiful.
Any public?
Sorry.
There weren't any on it before you dropped it. Okay.
I didn't have anything else. for them.
Nothing that anyone wants to comment on. This is just, she grabbed it for.
You need a
Notes?
sign in, yeah, you need a sign in sheet for the public hearing for us.
Oh, okay,
So that's what that is.
okay.
Got it. There was nothing on there for comments.
Any announcements? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Nice evening.